This is CBC Here and Now.
Unless it's for an essential purpose, we're not going to be letting people in.
Denying entry to Wabush, the Western Labrador town says non-essential travelers will be turned away, but is it legal?
I would say about 25 family members were diagnosed positive as a result of our gathering at Carl's funeral home.
A recovered Calls cluster patient shares his experience with COVID-19. We start in Labrador tonight. The mayor of Wabush says they will ban people from entering the region unless it's for essential needs. Wabush and Labrador City already have information checkpoints set up to provide COVID-19 information to travelers, but now Wabush Mayor Ron Barron says they will deny entry to anyone who doesn't meet the bar for essential travel during the pandemic. I spoke with the mayor about how that restriction would work.
What we're looking at doing is at our checkpoint that we had previously in place for finding out who was coming into our community and for what reason. We found a lot of people were traveling into Labrador West, we believe for mostly non-essential needs. So we're going to step that up now that the only way you will get in here is if it's for essential needs.
And what's the criteria for that? How do you determine what is an essential purpose for going into the community and what's a non-essential purpose?
Well, you know what? There's people who need prescriptions. People probably need a vet. And there's already guidelines set down by provincial government what those essential purposes are.
Say someone is coming in from Churchill Falls. They've traveled a long distance. They want to pop into Walmart, get some supplies. Are they going to be turned away?
Well, they have a grocery store in their own community. Now, if there's stuff there that's not readily available, we can try to arrange that stuff to be brought over to their community. We're not going to see anybody stuck with stuff that they need, even for their families or their pets, especially for medical purposes. We're not going to stop none of that stuff, prescriptions, but we just like to limit the amount of people that are going to come here.
What's the legality of this? Is it legal to stop someone from entering Labrador West?
We're not going to forcefully stop anybody. If people are adamant that they're going to come in our community, well, that's fine, but we'll take your license plate and we'll forward that onto the RNC to check it out, to make sure that you're legitimately here for essential purposes. And we remind folks that doesn't mean that 4 or 5 people can be into one vehicle from different families to drive over here. That's not supposed to be happening. And I guess if you're adamant that you're still going to come in here, the RNC will be advised to follow up to make sure that you're following the rules. And that's all we're trying to do, is make sure that the rules that are in place are going to be adhered to and protect our communities.
Is that a way to kind of intimidate people to follow the rules that you're setting out?
Well, you know what? We're still only doing what we've previously done the last 10 days plus, I believe. Just stopping people and asking what their business is and stuff like that is still an information checkpoint right now. We are furthering those steps up. We were hoping to have them in place today, but we're still trying to get our protocols and what we're actually allowed to do in place to make sure that we don't cross any lines ourselves. But hopefully tomorrow we will have those checkpoints manned 24 hours around the clock, making sure that whoever's coming into Labrador West is abiding by the laws and rules that are in place. That's all we're doing.
Now, the provincial government does say that any travel within the province should be for essential reasons only. However, there is no law preventing people from traveling from one town to another. The CBC's Peter Cowan asked the Premier about that today.
What they're setting up there are information checkpoints, and we encourage that. It's important to know who's coming into your communities and that it's should be for essential travel only, and that's what the information lines are for.
But Premier, the Mayor of Labrador West has said they are in fact turning people around. It's not just information that they're handing out. They're in fact saying you are not allowed to enter our community. So, isn't that against the law?
Well, I guess that'll be dependent on who tests the law.
Well, the Department of Municipal Affairs has a different take on that. It says stopping people from entering a town is against the law. In a statement just over an hour ago, the department said the minister spoke with mayors from Labrador today, telling them that municipalities have no authority to stop people from entering their towns. There is no provision under the Municipalities Act for this measure. The minister told the mayors they could only set up information checkpoints to provide travelers with the latest COVID-19 information, but they can't turn people away. Communities are also not allowed to issue their own states of emergency. Well, the town in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, voted this afternoon to set up a checkpoint itself where it can hand out COVID-19 information as well. Meanwhile, the province is working to strengthen restrictions at its borders, even as it prepares to loosen other rules. Here Now's Peter Cowan joins us live. So, Peter, what are these new restrictions?
Carolyn, it's no longer going to be voluntary when you arrive back into this province, either by car, by ferry, or by plane, that you're going to have to fill out a form starting at noon tomorrow, providing all your information, because they want to know who's coming in and making sure that you're abiding by the 14-day quarantine period. So this is to make sure that people who are arriving have someplace to go, that they actually do their isolation. And in a couple of days, you're also going to have to provide an isolation plan. So that makes sure, for example, that you aren't going to be around someone who's vulnerable to COVID-19. It'll also allow public health to know exactly who's returned so they can follow up later. Travel has always been the biggest risk factor for COVID-19. So why a month in are they tightening the rules? Well, here's what the chief medical officer had to say.
I think people have been following the rules. We did this now because we know that as we start to relax measures, we need to have a much clearer idea about importation. We need to be able to handle, to find all of those cases so that we can prevent a surge in cases that could overwhelm healthcare capacity. And as we start to relax measures and allow other procedures to happen within healthcare, we have to make sure we protect that capacity.
If you're wondering who's still traveling back and forth, today they said it's largely people who may work out of the province and are still having to come back and forth. And we have heard some concern about workers at the Curl Lake camps in Alberta, where there has been an outbreak of COVID-19. They've brought in additional measures to require all those people to isolate when they return back to this province, but they're also recommending that they all get tested, even if they don't have symptoms, because they continue to be worried that that's one of the main ways that the virus ends up in the province is from travel back and forth, Carol.
Thanks so much, Peter. That's Here and Now's Peter Cowan reporting live from the newsroom. Well, the talk of a gradual reopening comes as we mark another day with no new cases, maintaining our 6-day streak. One number that continues to climb is how many people have recovered from the illness. That number is now 205. That means there are now 48 active cases in the province. Now, one of those people who is now recovered is Bill Woolridge. He caught the virus at Call's funeral home during a service for his brother-in-law. He shared his experience of having COVID-19 at today's briefing.
On March 12th, my brother-in-law, Edward Tobin, passed away. He rested at Call's funeral home on Sunday, March 15th and Monday, March 16th. He was buried from Call's funeral home on March 17th after a funeral celebration from Call's chapel. My first COVID-19 symptom occurred the evening of March 19th. I experienced a headache and some pressure on my forehead. COVID-19, though, didn't even cross my mind at the time. On Saturday morning, March 21st, we received a phone call from a family member notifying us that an individual at Call's funeral home tested positive for COVID-19. My wife and I went into self-isolation right away, and it was only then I wondered if I had contracted the coronavirus. On Sunday, I began to experience low-grade fever and chills. The next day, we were notified that I had tested positive and my wife negative. So we practiced physical distancing, 2 meters apart in the living room, in the rec room, in the kitchen, separate bathrooms, separate bedrooms. We ate at different tables. Those measures appeared to work since my wife never contracted the coronavirus. During my sickness, I experienced fever, chills, sweats, fatigue, cough, headache, and loss of appetite. I would say about 25 family members were diagnosed positive as a result of our gathering at Carl's funeral home. They included some of our siblings and their spouses. Some of our friends also visited the funeral home to pay their respects to my wife and I, 2 of which tested positive, and 1 of those were hospitalized for 5 days. Coronavirus is not a hoax. Coronavirus is very real. Coronavirus can make you very sick and even threaten your life. Please respect this virus. I want to extend my deepest condolences to the families of the 3 individuals who passed away as a result of complications from coronavirus. It is so sad, and I am so very sorry.
Well, the province has issued a ban on all open fires in wooded areas or within 300 meters of a forest. That's because 80% of forest fires are caused by people, and the government wants to limit the number of first responders trying to put out fires this year to lower the risk of COVID-19 exposure. The use of gas barbecues is allowed, and the Premier says backyard fires are okay too. The ban will be in effect until September.
You know, the kinds of campfires that you had in your backyard last year, you can do those things, but this is really prohibiting and restricting, large, brush burning and so on. Grass fires, we've already seen, I think, about 5 or 6 already this year at all.
Well, in other news, CBC has learned the province's new oil and gas corporation has parted ways with high-paid consultant Gordon McIntosh. McIntosh's controversial $337,000 contract has been terminated months earlier than planned. The former Deputy Minister of Natural Resources was hired without competition despite being based in Scotland. The Crown Agency offered few details but said his contract is one of several that were amended or terminated following a review. Staff working for the government, or Oilco as it's called, will take over McIntosh's work. His contract ends on Friday. CBC News has emergency audio recordings from the mass shooting that left 22 people dead in Nova Scotia. It tells the story of a chaotic night for first responders as they scrambled to catch a killer and save lives. This video shows the shooter about an hour before he was killed by police. He was dressed as an RCMP officer and driving a mock police cruiser. He got out of the vehicle, changed out of a jacket into a reflective vest, then continued on driving. He was killed by police about an hour later. Tonight, we have recordings from emergency scanners from Saturday night and Sunday. They reveal what first responders did and did not know as the gunman made his way across Nova Scotia.
Is there also a structure fire out this way?
Nothing I get reported.
We're seeing huge flames of smoke from where we are.
Is it off in a distance, say 10 or 11 o'clock from your location? That'd be where you'll be going for a civic.
Yeah, copy. That's exactly where it is. Do we know?
Moments later, police caught up with the shooter at this gas station in Enfield, Nova Scotia, where he was shot and killed by police, ending the 12-hour rampage. Halifax Regional Police have removed the signage from outside the denture clinic owned by the shooter. Thousands of people had called for its removal. The oversized smile and teeth came down yesterday.
Every time you walk by, that's all you can think about is, you know, someone who was supposed to fix people's smiles and that kind of thing, and what he ended up doing. And I'm really thankful it's gone.
Not a whole lot different forecast as we head through the day tomorrow. As we head through Saturday, though, that's when the next weather maker moves in. I'll have a couple of those details coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus deadline is midnight, Friday, May 15th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, before we get to the weather, I have a great video to show you out of Gander last night. There was a town-wide dance party. Of course, everyone kept their distance from their neighbor. Gander had asked people to dance on their front steps to this catchy tune and then send the video along to Town Hall. So that's what you're seeing there. And Ashley, I can see that you got a few moves going on as well. It's hard not to dance to that song, right?
It's a good song. It's a good song.
Yeah, and one other thing that makes me do a happy dance is seeing all that sunshine out there today.
Yes, another gorgeous day out there as far as sunshine. We did see a few places that woke up to some snow, but didn't last very long. The other thing that to note is really the winds. It's very windy out there. Let's take a look at those numbers. Well, by windy, very windy, I mean pretty brisk. We're looking at wind gusts anywhere from 40 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour. We're seeing that up through Labrador as well. And the fortunate thing is we're going to see these winds stick around for the next day or so. So temperature-wise, though, the warmest was in the east, 6 degrees in St. John, same for Twillingate, and we've got those numbers anywhere from 0 to as much as 5 degrees, and then, Happy Valley Goose Bay, 7 degrees you reached as your daytime high today. So a beautiful afternoon there. Now, as we head through the night tonight, like I said, those winds are going to stick around. We're still looking at that potential for a few flurries across the board. The light snow, or rather the snow that's happening up in northern areas of Labrador, that will taper to flurries, and that's pretty much what you're looking at through the overnight tonight. Along the west coast, you could wake up again to a few more centimeters by the time tomorrow morning rolls around. And then into the afternoon tomorrow, not a whole lot different than the forecast today, mainly cloudy along the west coast. And again, you're going to see that potential for flurries in the first half of the day, scattered across the island into the afternoon. But then we should see plenty of sunshine as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. And then up through Labrador, again, another unsettled day with the potential for a few flurries through the afternoon. You'll see that next cloud cover will move in towards the early morning hours on Saturday, and that's going to be our next weather maker. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. As far as tomorrow's forecast goes, temperatures pretty much similar to what we're seeing today, anywhere from 3 to 7 degrees. Again, those winds will stay breezy, generally out of the southwest, west-southwest, with gusts between 30 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour right across the board, and then hovering around the 0 degree mark for the Straits. Now here's Saturday. The system will move in overnight. It's going to essentially take that exact same track it did for the last system on Tuesday. There's a little bit of disagreement, as per usual, this far out, but while definitely keep an eye on that one. It does look like snow transitioning to rain again. It moves out fairly quickly. By midday on Saturday, it moves out, and we should just see some lingering cloud cover with that one, and then generally unsettled up through Labrador as well. But those temperatures look beautiful for the western half of the island, around 8 degrees as the daytime high. Keeping temperatures cool for the Avalon right now, but again, going to have to keep an eye on that forecast, and then looking at 0 degrees for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Now, just wanted to share this lovely photo. Linda Cutler sent us this great shot of the moose enjoying the spring. We all do, don't we? This is just outside Chance Cove. Thank you so much for sending that in. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's a great shot, Linda. Thanks so much. And thank you, Ashley. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Good night.
Welcome back to Here and Now. RCMP and Scotia are investigating a hit and run that happened early this morning around 1 a.m. Police say a driver struck a pedestrian, then left the scene, leaving behind the injured person. Also in Labrador, 3 snowmobilers have been located after being reported missing this morning. The RNC says the 2 men and a 12-year-old boy left a cabin on Esker Road in the Churchill Falls area yesterday afternoon. They were traveling to a nearby lake but didn't return back to their cabin at the time they were expected. The 3 people were found in good health today just before 4 o'clock. Well, some new photos were released by the royal family today in honor of Prince Louis's 2nd birthday. Just have a look at this lovely moment. The youngest son of Prince William and Kate hugging his grandfather, Prince Charles. These shots of Prince Louis covered with paint after creating a rainbow-colored poster were taken by the Duchess of Cambridge earlier this month at their family home in eastern England, where they're staying during the coronavirus lockdown. Children across Britain have been painting rainbows and hanging them in the windows as a symbol of hope during the COVID-19 pandemic. The adorable 2-year-old is the 5th in line to the British throne. Our colleagues from CBC Nova Scotia are just ahead with the latest on the investigation into the shooting deaths of 22 people. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, people can't mourn in person, so tomorrow there will be an online vigil to remember the victims. The National Police Federation is asking everyone to wear red tomorrow. Red is symbolic of the Mounties' red surge, so wearing red is a way to mourn the loss of RCMP Constable Heidi Stevenson and the other innocent victims. You can also add your name to a virtual book of condolences. The Nova Scotia government has an online book that you can sign to honor anyone who lost their lives this past weekend. Just go to the website novascotia.ca/condolences. Well, that's it for Here and Now this evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Stay with CBC, though. Tom Murphy and Amy Smith are just ahead with CBC News and Nova Scotia.